in one point or another in your career, you will be dealing with the client, right? And this cannot be more true than in our industry, in business process outsourcing, where the continuity of the business, the acquisition of the business, largely depends upon, again, the client. So it's very understandable if one finds client interfacing a little bit intimidating. But it does not need to be so. What I learned from my mentors and in my experience, there are only 3 competencies that one has to master in order to ace that client meeting. There's 3 of them. Number 1, due diligence. Number 2, communication. And lastly, explaining performance. So the first one that I want to talk about is due diligence. And this starts with studying your numbers. So remember, your client's bottom line is business. And it's all about the numbers. So they want to talk about the scores and how they measure against the goals that they set for the metrics that they gave us. But beyond knowing your numbers is knowing the story behind the numbers. That's actually a little bit more important. So they want to know why are we doing so good? What worked? And if we're not doing so well, this is where your deep dive analysis comes in. So you would want to know what impacted your performance, what we did to adjust, and what didn't work, and what we plan to do next. So it's a lot of information to be ready for entering a client meeting. So it does not really hurt to bring notes with you. You know, I bring a printout of my data and also notes of my write-up of what I want to talk about, my talking points. Another part of due diligence is doing what you promised to do. Most of these client meetings is not happening for the first time. Some of it are happening on a monthly basis. You have your monthly performance review, right? Then you also have your quarterly performance review. So whatever commitment that you gave to the client from the last meeting, rest assured they're going to follow up on it the following meeting. So you want to be sure whatever you promise to the client, you're able to accomplish it before the next meeting happens. All right? Which brings me to my next point, which is when you go into a client meeting, you should be ready already with your commitment. All right? Whether it be goals or action plans, you should come ready with it already. Why? Because you want to frame the discussion. Okay? And you want to be able to present an action plan that is both acceptable to the client, and another thing is realistic. So the key here is under promise, over deliver. All right? And lastly, before you get into that meeting, one thing you want to do is make sure that you understand the nature of that meeting. Is it a business review? If it's a business review, most likely you want to talk about performance and what you want to do next to improve that performance, your numbers. Are you going for a new hire certification meeting? So basically what you want to be ready is knowing the strengths and weaknesses of that employee and be able to sell them to the client regardless. So you would want to know what information you need to bring and be ready for the client. Okay? So now that you're ready, all right, you're prepared, you can get into that meeting. You have your weapons in your arsenal. You get into the meeting, what comes in is communication. How do you now relay this information to the client? Okay? It's all about creating a compelling narrative. Your client does not need a recitation of facts, no. They don't need you to dump a laundry list of these are the data. These are the findings that I have from my analysis. Remember, your client also reports to their bosses. So you want to make it simple and clear the way you communicate it to them so that they will be able to communicate it to their bosses when it's their turn to talk about your numbers. All right? So it's very important. The only way to deliver a compelling narrative is if you deliver it in a clear and simple manner. Okay? And now that you know how to package it, all right, we go to the third competency, explaining performance. Number 1, accentuate the positive. Remember, meetings are not always only about lowlights. It's also about highlights as well. Regardless, even in our most trying times in this account, we always have highlights. We always have those things that we did right. And you want to make sure that you bring it up too. Don't forget to celebrate your successes. Don't forget that, all right? And another thing, accentuate the positive. You also have eliminating the negative. I'm not talking about sweeping the negative under the rug, no, all right? What I'm trying to say is get ahead of the negative news so that you are going to be able to frame the discussion and put the emphasis, direct the emphasis where you want it to be, all right? As opposed to hiding the negative news and letting your client learn about it as the conversation goes on. If that happens, the power now is transferred to the client and you will be placed in a hot seat. You don't want that happening. So you want to be proactive. If there's negative news, get ahead of it, frame the discussion. All right? And finally, latch on the affirmative. You always wrap up the meeting with the affirmative. It's always about reinforcing the confidence of the client. So if you have action plans, if you have action statement, you always want to keep in mind, smart. Cliche, but it works. Your client does not have time for empty boasts, okay? They want to hear a specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound action plan. Something that they can look forward to the next meeting. And something to give them confidence that we can do your business. We can handle your business, all right? So see, it's not really as intimidating as it sounds. And of course, this is not going to happen overnight. It actually is something that we are able to master through practice with each and every meeting. All right? So don't beat yourself up if you feel like, oh, there's something that I missed. Things develop over time by practicing. And the only key here, remember, is confidence. Fake it until you make it. All right? So as long as you are trying to move in that direction, I am sure your role in support is very, very important in reinforcing the confidence of our client. So as long as you take these learnings with you, I am confident that you can face any client that come your way. Thank you so much and good luck to you all.